Welcome back to the Realtor Diaries, episode 3. My name is Elijah McGowan. I'm here with
Kim Jacoby. We're both with Century 21 and the Jacoby team, your go-to realtors for Northern California. And today's podcast topic is how things used to be.
Yep. I've only been in real estate for less than a year at the time of this recording, and Kim is
10 years in.
10 years in,
Yeah.
10 years in. And so instead of telling you how it is today, for the most part, we're bringing a guest.
Yes.
And so I hope you enjoy. Okay. All right. We'd like to welcome Georgie Bellin onto the podcast.
Hey, hi.
She was raised in Davis, super involved in our Chico community, including a small stint as mayor and being on various other committees. She's been in real estate for 53 years and
Yes, I have.
apparently has some great stories to tell.
I have lots of stories.
And she's going to tell us how it is and how it's been. Thanks
Oh
for
my
coming.
goodness. Well, thank you for inviting me. I'm really happy to be here
Super
for our
excited.
first time. So I just do want to start talking about being in real estate 53 years. And I have a friend that I brought,
Oh.
and his name is Larry. And it's Larry the dinosaur, because people think that I have been selling real estate since the age of the dinosaur. And
So
this
I've
is
heard.
Larry. You're happy to be here, right? So it may seem like it's a long way back, 53 years. In fact, really, it is a long way back. Because when I started selling real estate, it was one page.
Yeah.
One page, that's all it was.
One page
Just
to sell, one page to buy?
One page.
That's
You wrote the date, the address, the sales price, and then the seller signed it, and the buyer signed it, and you open an escrow.
Really? Like
That's how you
total?
total one page.
Oh my God.
And the title company would do any modifications or anything you wanted to add.
Mhm.
And then I created a cheat sheet that I typed up, put it in a plastic file, and then I would add things like pest control, roof inspections, septic inspections. As I learned to protect my sellers,
Yeah.
I started adding things.
Oh, wow.
Well, over the course of real estate, now I can tell you, it's just really changed. It has changed. And so now, Larry, if you just don't mind sitting here for a minute, I can tell you that by the time you complete an escrow, you probably will have
Yep.
over 100 pages of signed documents.
Yeah.
At least. So it's no easy feat to do it by yourself without somebody who's got some experience and some knowledge in the way it's done and the wording that is used to protect you as a seller, and certainly to protect you as a buyer.
I know, and they keep adding forms.
More.
Every 6 months.
And you know why they do? So when they started out and they thought, okay, we'll just give you a couple more pages here. There'll be a special page for the seller to sign on a counter offer. There'll be a special thing here making sure everybody's clear on what we countered at and what you agreed.
Mhm.
So they do that. Then they started adding more and more pages. Before long, they've got more and more pages.
Yeah.
And it's always to add one more thing
One more.
to protect the seller and the buyer.
Buyer.
Yep.
And whenever we would go on to our form application in our computers, and it would say new addendum, new update, new form update, and you're like, every week there's another
Always
form.
something new.
And like an example was, we used to just say window coverings. You know, window coverings are included with the house, window coverings are not included with the house.
So like shutters, drapes, curtains.
Well, yeah. But then people are like, well, what about the swag that goes over the top of the pole that's not attached?
Really?
But it matches the bedspread.
Yeah.
And you have a buyer that goes over to the house the first day and goes, where's all the swag and where's everything? And they say,
Yeah.
the seller took it because it matched the bedspread.
Right.
And so then we have to add another thing that even if something is not attached as a window covering, if it's displayed as a window covering, it's a window covering.
Yeah.
You know, so one more page,
Wow.
and then it's like, okay, so, you know, another page, right? And then another
Yeah.
page. And that's how you got, so you have hundreds and hundreds of pages that you as a buyer have to go through and initial, and then you as a seller have to go through and accept. And all those pages create the agreement that is in the escrow.
Right.
And then once you're in escrow, how many more pages get added?
I mean,
Well, if they're getting a loan,
a couple
loan
hundred more,
docs,
a couple
yeah.
hundred
loan
more.
docs, right?
Hundreds,
If there's
yeah.
a trust,
yeah,
you got trust agreements. If it's part of a 1031 exchange,
if there's tenants living,
if there's tenant
yeah.
agreements, estoppels the tenants have to
A
sign.
prelim can be
Oh my gosh.
any number of things.
If it's an
depending-
HOA, then there's all
Oh,
of
the HOA document.
HOA.
And this is probably the size of the HOA document.
Yeah.
And the budget, and
Yeah,
their last
minutes.
year, and their assessments, and their future assessments, and the disclosures, right? Another
Yeah.
pile.
Yeah.
And I know we're supposed to be saving paper, and I know that Larry, just being a dinosaur, is probably very upset about all the paper we use.
Well, when I first, because I've been in real estate 10 years, when I first started, we still kept paper files as an office.
Yeah.
But now we don't. Now there's no paper
Yeah,
files, and
right.
everything can be done paperless.
Scanned and sent
Yeah.
out and created and sent,
Yeah.
and it's better. It's way
Yeah,
better.
as of today, I've closed one escrow.
One escrow.
I'm before my 1 year, so we
Yay,
made it.
You're on your way. Yeah, good.
But yeah, hundreds of pages of stuff.
Hundreds of pages.
Very important things.
And so that brings me around to, I'm grateful that I have all the years of experience because I've pretty much seen pretty much everything. But it's always changing, new situations, new stuff that comes up. And because we have so many classes and teaching and everything that they do here at Century 21, it's pretty amazing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
Yeah.
So I guess I just feel when I look back at how it's changed and all the new, I just can't imagine how anyone would buy or sell a piece of property without the expertise of a licensed real estate agent and a licensed company like Century 21 with all the insurances and all
Oh my
the extra
gosh.
things that
Yeah.
they go to warranty everything and to create a strength that if you're listing with Century 21, you've got some real power behind you in our legal offices, our marketing departments, all this stuff is so right by the board, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right down the line.
And without it, it's a mess.
I
What
can't
can it
imagine.
be?
I can't imagine. And we do deal with agents that kind of work out of their kitchens that they don't have the forms, they don't have the paperwork, they don't have the latest, they don't use that, they don't even know
Right.
about it yet,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
Aren't you guys seeing
I
that?
know. We just wrote or had a listing recently
Uh-huh.
where an agent, brought an offer for their buyer and they didn't submit the form so that agent could get paid.
Right.
Yep.
Because
The
that's a
newest
new
forms.
The agent
Yeah.
didn't know, and so, but we were, we weren't gonna like trick them and not have.
No.
So we were
They
like,
fair.
yeah. So
Yeah.
we were like, you're gonna want to
Yeah.
include this form now because otherwise you won't get
Right.
paid.
Yeah, for
Right.
doing your job.
For doing
Yeah.
your job.
Don't work for free.
But we do it because we love it. I mean, it's really fun. It's still
Oh,
fun
it's
for
great.
me, right? Fun.
Oh, yeah.
But it's challenging,
Yeah.
and the bottom line is just really helping our sellers
Mhm.
and our buyers feel that we've got it. We got this. We know what we're talking about. And we've really got you covered here. And all of this paper that now is just in the cloud, I guess that's what
Yeah,
it all is, right?
That's where it all
You know?
stores.
But there's a reason for every single line, every single check mark, every single box that has to be checked on there. When this one says, we're going to change the length of the escrow, check the box.
Mhm.
Everything has to be signed, even if it's DocuSigned.
That's
They
right.
accept that, right?
Yeah.
Everything. But it still has to be done.
So do you think, whenever you see a new form, are you like, oh, or are you like, oh, good, this form is helpful?
I realize that the Department of Real Estate and California Association of Realtors and their huge bank of attorneys,
yeah.
I mean, huge bank, they are reading every line and saying, we need to clean that up, or
Yeah.
we need to extend that
Yeah.
understanding so it's clearer. And so when I see the changes, I know it's not because someone just decided to add more paper.
Right.
They really thought there was something, there'd been maybe a dispute. Maybe there'd
Right.
been a dispute over it. And they go, okay, we won't let that happen again.
Like I hear sometimes the complaints, it's like, well, these used to be one page. Why can't it be now? Well, there's probably a very good reason that a number of people.
Why can't it just be one page? I know. I think, oh my goodness. It cannot, because people have gotten down to little tiny facts, little tiny things.
Mhm.
And sometimes, even though it's written and agreed to, we read it over and over going, did they mean
Right.
they would get the keys
Yes.
the day of the closing at 10 a.m. or
Yeah.
the 24 hours after that closing
Right.
at 10 a.m., right?
Yeah.
You know, little things matter to buyers moving in.
Yep.
Like we have definitions of what do days mean?
What do
What
days
time
mean?
does the day mean?
Yeah,
All of
yeah.
these different things
Yeah.
come together to give us a clear transaction,
Yeah.
a clear
that's what we
contract
want.
that lets us
That's
buy
what we
and
want.
sell
Yeah.
houses.
Yeah, and enjoy doing it because it's really by the book.
Yes.
We don't do anything under the table. We're not
No.
just do anything fly by night. We really have done this, and we have classes where we go over these forms
Oh my
and
gosh.
over these
Yeah.
forms and double check these forms so that everyone's clear
Yeah.
on that. But your question is, when I see a new form come in, I know that a whole bunch of very smart people, probably a lot smarter than me, have sat down and come up with better wording, better way to express it and complete an agreement. So I'm just glad there's so many people out there working in my behalf, whether it's at
Oh my
Century
God.
21 in our legal department or
Right.
the state of California's legal department. I'm glad they're out there. Huh.
Yeah,
Reading
for sure.
every line.
Yeah, and we're not all dinosaurs. I mean, really. Some of us, but not yet. Anyway, I hope that helps.
Yeah. So
Okay?
before the internet, okay, so now like if I have a buyer and they want to go look at a house, 9 times out of 10, the buyer finds the house on the internet
Mhm.
and then texts
Yeah.
me and says, you know,
Can we go look at this?
yeah, can you find out more information about this house? We'd like to go look at it, blah, blah, blah. So how did buyers find out about what houses were for sale before the internet?
Well, there was a sign in the front yard,
Okay, so you
Right,
drove
right,
around maybe?
or maybe an ad in the newspaper,
Oh yeah.
open house
Paper
ad in the
ads.
newspaper and stuff. But they would call you on something, you know, and they might call you on a sign,
Mm-hmm.
or they may call you on an ad, and they say, you know, and you go, are you looking in that neighborhood? Because you drove by the sign.
Yeah.
Or you're looking at that price range, could you call the price on the ad? And then you start to get to know what they're looking for. The thing that I think has made real estate so different to sell, you know, it's not just filling out forms, but to actually help your buyers find that property and help your sellers market that property, is that buyers sometimes go on the internet and look at the pictures and they go, no,
Yeah.
no, no,
Oh yes.
no. no. And when I've had a buyer call me, and there was a thing a few years ago that a buyer called and said, I looked at the addresses and we looked at some pictures on the internet, and we want a big backyard, we want to have family gatherings, this is what we're looking for. And I said, well, what about the house on Bidwell Avenue?
Yeah.
What about that house? It's a great house, and that backyard is fabulous with the gazebo, everything you want, privacy.
Mhm.
And they said, well, we didn't like the pictures.
Yeah.
We didn't like the pictures. And I said, okay, there was a house they wanted to see. So I said, okay, well, I'll show you the house you want to see, but you have to also go look at
Right.
the house on Bidwell with me. And they did.
And that's
And they did. And they walked in the front door, and they looked straight through into the backyard and said, oh my gosh, this feels like home.
mhm.
And the pictures didn't do it. So
Right.
I think buyers actually don't get what they should be getting, because it's so easy to look at pictures on the internet and make a decision. I don't think it helps them.
Right.
But you can't stop them.
Yep.
Right.
You can't stop them from looking at pictures.
And they have Google Earth now. You can zoom
Oh,
down.
yeah.
And
The
see.
backyard and the
Yeah.
neighbors, they do. They have all that. Yes.
But
they
that
do.
also tells us what we should be doing when we're selling someone's house.
Yeah.
Is, well, the pictures matter a
Pictures
lot.
matter. Yeah.
But you know, it's important that we
I-
get our buyers in the house.
Right.
Because
In the door.
spatially, yeah.
So just like you say, the pictures matter. I don't think you have to put 40 pictures.
Oh, well,
I think
the
you
number.
put like 10 pictures.
Yes.
Show them the kitchen, show them the front door,
Yeah.
show them the backyard. But don't show them every closet, every stairway.
Yes.
I mean, really, too many pictures. And I think it takes away from people's curiosity about seeing
Yeah.
the rest of the house.
Right.
Definitely when they're bombarded with so many pictures,
Right.
they're just,
Yeah, and they can't feel the house. They need to
Yes.
open the door.
Yeah. Because you can't really
Yeah.
capture the light or like how a house feels in a picture.
hmm And a lot of times, you know, you show people homes and they walk in the front door, they say, I love the feel
Oh,
of
yeah.
this house. I
Yes.
love it.
Yep.
And so, I mean, you can't get that. You can't get it from pictures. And so, internet has changed that part of real estate
Yeah.
a lot.
It's more of a challenge now.
More of a challenge.
yep,
It's
don't
getting
buy
more
sight
difficult.
unseen.
Yeah, don't buy. Well, I'm so surprised when people tell me they want to write an offer on something they've never been in, or their broker from San Francisco calls and wants to write the offer on something he's not seen. I mean, it's just crazy out there that way. It certainly has changed. Made it more challenging.
So
you're representing someone.
One of the stories that, because we've heard some of your stories that you shared at the office meeting, but one of them that we were tickled by, you want to?
Oh, so the Jacoby team office is right next to Angie, of course.
Oh, yeah,
of course.
my daughter.
And so we heard that when you first started, you were riding around on your bicycle and you were selling houses from the bike.
That's true. That is true. You know, it's not true that I sold property to the Bidwells, but it is true. It is true that I started with a bicycle. So when I started in real estate in 1972, I was working in a real estate office doing the bookkeeping.
Okay.
And I'd watch the men in the fedoras and scarves, you know, go out to show real estate and stuff. And I asked my boss, I said, could I get a real estate license? And he's like, no one's going to buy real estate from a woman. And they're not going to buy it from a woman that's never owned any real estate, you know. That's not going to happen. So one of the other young guys said, you can take your license down in Sacramento. So I got a couple of real estate books and read them. And I've been working in the office. I took the bus to Sacramento, passed the test.
Yep, there you go.
And when I got my license, I was like, okay, now what am I going to do?
Yeah.
So I didn't have a car. And I was still finishing college. And so I lived over by Citrus School, the elementary school here in Chico. And so I got a clipboard and my bike, and I just started knocking on doors. And neighbors back then would open the doors easily.
Yes.
And the other thing was, they would tell you all about all their neighbors. So you found out who was in a convalescent hospital, who, you know, so you really kind of learned this neighborhood. And back then that I didn't know it was farming.
Yes.
I was actually farming this 5-6 block area. And I was getting pretty familiar with all the people.
Yeah, you learn about them.
And I do say to agents that are getting started, you don't have to have a BMW. You don't have to have all of this stuff. But you have to have the bravery and the tenacity to go knock on a door. And so I'd knock on doors and people would talk to me and I'd follow them up, and pretty soon I was listing houses and start tucking money away from every sale, and then I bought a car. But my first car did not have air conditioning. So we laughed that people would buy real estate from me to get out of my car.
Oh, there you go.
Not in Chico.
Because you drive them around.
Yeah, but I did. I started on a bike. So all these agents that just feel like there's one more thing they need before they can get started, that is not true. That is not true. If you want to get started and you start knocking on doors and you want to help people, you will create a business. And it's been my pleasure to still be doing it. And enjoying it.
The people are out there that want to buy and sell.
Buyers.
But they have to know somebody who can help them.
And people think there's too many realtors and everybody knows a realtor. That's not true. That is so not true. And you just find, you knock on enough doors and you talk to enough people. The business is certainly out there for anyone who really has that perseverance to do this.
So, I have one last question for you. You've been in real estate 53 years. So, thinking back through all those years and all the different real estate markets we've been in, is now a good time to buy a house?
I think they're not making any more dirt. They're not making any more soil. The cost of construction continues to go up. And every time we have a hurricane or something happens, suddenly all the windows need to go to Florida, or all the wood roofing materials and stuff. So cost of construction, cost of building is always getting more expensive, always. And I built a lot of subdivisions. I built a lot of homes. And my first homes we were selling was $45,000, and the next phase was 52. 6 months later, and up and up and up and up. And I've never seen it other than when we had the slump in 2005. And that was the banks, wasn't us. But I've never seen it go down. I've never seen it go down. And they predict, I mean, whether it's a 7% or 8% or 12% increase, if you bought a home, 20 years ago.
Oh, I know.
You couldn't have saved that money. You couldn't have put it in the bank fast enough. And they also say that the beginning of wealth in a family is the home ownership. That is the home ownership. And I had young men coming back from Vietnam and buying their first houses, and I still see them today now that they are retiring ahead of me, and they have their own companies, and they always say, you know, I have 7 homes, and Georgie, you made me buy my first one.
Yeah.
So I think it's still so important, just get your foot in the door. And there's so many programs, right? You guys, there's a lot of first-time homebuyer programs, state program.
Yeah.
I mean, as long as you have the ability to make the payment,
right,
we can get you into a house.
Yeah.
Oh, we can make it happen.
So it's, if you can make the payment, we can get you into a house.
Yeah.
And then we can also show you how the savings you'll have on your taxes because of the interest you'll be writing off.
Yeah.
There's so many different benefits to owning, not just owning your own house.
Yeah.
Yes.
You know, so it's really fun to. First-time home buyers still warm my heart. It's the funnest thing. They're so excited.
Yeah,
you know.
I love working with
Angie
them
had
too.
somebody last week just cry. She was so excited to get her loan
It's a
approved
big
to buy a
deal.
house.
It's a big deal.
It's still a big deal. It still is. It's a big deal.
Well, thank you so much for being on our podcast.
Oh, you're welcome. Thanks for asking. This is Larry. Yes.
Larry,
Yeah,
thank you
Larry.
for being on our
Larry
podcast
is a
as
dinosaur.
well. Yes.
We actually know that Larry is a dinosaur, isn't he?
Oh, yes.
And now it's time for the news. This segment of our podcast is where we cover statistics, information, history about the topic that we have just heard about, stories about.
Yep. And as you heard from Georgie, today is like how it used to be and how it is. And I'm going to start us off with a little history. So late 1800s is about when you had like a person that sold your real estate, like somebody you went to and said, please sell my house. Yeah. And in those early like 1900s, late 1800s, you had realtors doing like 12-hour open houses, sometimes staying at the house they're selling until it's sold.
Oh, wow.
And like, so it was a very different scene to what we see today. And all of that culminated in more and more people getting into selling real estate, and eventually the founding of NAR, National Association of Realtors, in Chicago in 1908.
1908.
Yep.
Wow.
And then I actually learned this from like our ethics training.
Yeah.
Like every realtor goes through ethics training because that's, I mean, what we are. We uphold a code of ethics.
Every 2 years we have to retake the class.
Yep. And so the first version of the code of ethics was established in 1913, and it's honestly the basis of even other industries' code of ethics. Like realtors were dealing with people's homes and the land, the dirt they owned. So it was important that the people selling that had an ethical standing, and that they were punished for practicing in bad faith or going off into the wind if they messed up somebody's deal.
Yeah.
And so,
makes sense.
Yeah, around the 1920s is when like we're considered to have exited the wild west of real estate. It's like it became a lot more, I don't want to say regimented, but it became a lot more accountable. Like realtors became a lot more accountable in 1913 when a lot of them joined the National Association of Realtors.
Yeah. Yeah, I had actually, this goes right along with your news. I found this statistic that less than half of Americans owned land and a home until about 1950.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, before 1950, it was like less than half of Americans owned dirt. But now today,
sorry, owned
66.
dirt is so funny.
66% of Americans own a home today.
Yeah, I wonder if that's like, I mean, it feels like it can be attributed to having someone to help you through that process to an extent. But also, I mean, that's a big part of the American dream, is getting into your own home.
That's right.
The place that you own.
Yeah, so before the internet, and we talked about that a little bit with our guest speaker, Georgie Bellin. Before the internet, people wanting to see what homes were for sale, they looked in the paper, like she said, or they drove around. But by 2020, 97% of home buyers were using the internet to see what homes were for sale.
Yeah. Listings were on the internet as early as like the 90s when the internet started getting into people's offices especially. But I mean, the computer definitely changed the industry, I think, for the better. I mean, we wouldn't see almost every single buyer using the internet
Right.
if it hadn't changed things for the better.
I think it puts, information in people's hands, and information is helpful. It helps us make the right decisions for ourselves.
And you'll see an interesting parallel with things like the stock market. Like the S&P 500 on average rises 5% a year over like 20 or 30 years. That's not an exact quote of it, but that's the general standard people use. And real estate, has followed that either to like meeting or beating that same growth for the majority of real estate since, the internet.
Right?
And especially just real estate in general, with what Georgie was saying.
Yeah.
In the 70s, helping with subdivisions, and then like 6 months later, you see a 10% increase in the price of the home in the subdivision.
Yeah.
Which is crazy.
Right. I know. Well, I would, because of the stats that I found, I would say that in the last 40 to 45 years, obviously, real estate in California in particular has increased way more than 5%. Here's some stats. So in 1970, the average home price in California was $24,300 in 1970. Now in 2022, the average home price in California was $800,000.
Really?
So that's 42 years. I'm sorry, 52 years.
Gosh.
Yeah. Here's another. I literally found a home that's for sale right now in LA. It's a 6,000 square foot home for sale for $5.75 million. The people that are selling it, they bought it in 1969 for $60,000.
So now they're selling for
$5.75 million.
That's almost.
It's a 96% increase.
I was gonna say, that's crazy.
Yeah, and it's not an outland. It's not like they're shooting for the moon at 5.75. Like it'll sell for that in that area.
Gosh,
I know. Yeah,
it's crazy. And talking about real estate, you really talk about mortgages too.
right.
And like huge changes in the mortgage industry, especially after 2008. But we had before 2008, people buying and selling homes with a realtor giving them a loan for the down payment.
Gosh,
even I think there's an agent in our office who got a loan from their realtor to buy their first home.
Yeah.
And you don't see that anymore today because you see a lot more like standardization with like Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, Sallie Mae sometimes even.
Well, and back before the 2008 changes, a lot of lenders took what they called stated income. So if the person applying for the loan stated that their income was $100,000, then the lender they'd be like, okay, great. But now if you get a loan, you have to submit taxes, W-2s, pay stubs, bank statements. There is no more stated income.
And if you don't have all that documentation in place, sometimes you can't even get it.
Right.
It just doesn't happen. But those changes are neither here nor there, but it definitely means if you want to buy, you need to have your ducks in a row.
Oh, I know. Speaking of lending, I found this to be crazy. So in 1974, the Equal Credit Opportunity Act came into effect, and that's a whole thing. But before that came into effect in 1974, basically financial institutions could refuse to give an unmarried woman a home loan just because she was an unmarried woman, or require her to have a male co-signer.
Really?
Yeah, lenders prior to 1974 often charged women higher interest rates and required bigger down payments than their male counterparts just because they're a woman.
Yeah, because when you're taking real estate classes, you learn about that act.
Yeah, the Equal Credit Opportunity Act, 1974.
But it means if you post like an APR on an ad, you have to apply that to like all the other criteria. And it makes it so you can't discriminate in certain ways.
Right. Yeah, well, and you think about it, like there's a whole lot of people alive on this planet today that were alive in 1974. And so times have changed a lot
Yeah,
since then.
definitely.
Yeah. Not only that, but the population. So in 1970, California had a population of 20 million.
Yeah.
That's doubled. Now it's 40 million.
Are we getting close to 40 now? Or
Yeah.
have we passed it?
We are like right under it.
Oh my
39
gosh.
something, but really close to 40.
Jeez.
Yeah. Crazy.
Gosh.
Well,
Yeah, that's all I have today. Learning plenty about the history of how the real estate world started, in all honesty.
that's been your news. All right, and we'll see you at the next podcast.
Yeah, good stuff.